Jane Palmer. I'm a qualified medical herbalist, and which means that I heal people anything that you would take to the doctors using herbal tinctures. Now, these are a small array of the herbal tinctures that you can use. I have about 200, but there are literally thousands and thousands. We call ourselves modern herbalists, modern medical herbalists, because of the tinctures. Once upon a time, you used to go to a herbalist and she used to put all the plants in the cauldron and stir it round and around and around and make this really goopy, thick, foul-tasting liquid and try, get it down people's throats. And I think that's one of the reasons it became unpopular when suddenly we discovered nice little white pills that you could take, much nicer, and they work. Unfortunately, we found since then that these nice little white pills don't have all the answers. Sometimes we can get immune to them, sometimes they have side effects, their chemistry, and our bodies react really well to organic compounds, which these tinctures are. So multi-organic compounds, one herb would have 40, 50 different chemicals in it, whereas a little pill would just have 1 or 2 or 3. And our bodies aren't used to chemicals. There's nothing in nature or in the universe that is just 1 or 2 chemicals. Everything organic is multi-chemical, and that's why herbal medicine works so well for us. So modern herbal medicine is because we make alcoholic tinctures now instead of the cauldron and stirring it for days. So we steep a herb in a mixture of alcohol and water, depending on what herb it is and what components we want to extract out of it. We leave it to stand for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then we squash it in a wine press. So you squash it as far down as you can, throw what's left away because that's just vegetation, it's got nothing left in it, and the alcohol suspends all the chemicals from the plant and it preserves them. A teaspoon of herbal tincture is worth 3 or 4 cups of really strong decoction, so it's much easier to take. You can put it in a glass of water, so it's a concentrated version. And also they will last for years and years and years because of the alcohol is suspending and preserving the chemicals in it, so they last for ages and they don't go off like a decoction would. And it's much easier to take. Children just take drops. Adults, it's usually 1 teaspoon in a cup of boiling water. So, and that's it, and we can got herbs here for everything from skin problems to gynecological problems to heart to urinary. So pretty much anything that you would take to the doctor, there is a herb out there that helps. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to work because herbal medicine works on a cellular base, so it works on the physiology of the body and chemistry. And if someone's had a problem for a long time, it's going to take quite a while to turn the body chemistry around and do a deep healing. So sometimes it can take months. But once it's done it does it for good. So, it's a really good, strong, deep healer. And like I say, our bodies accept the herbs much readier than it would do just little white pills. Saying that is always the amount of people I've had to say, stop messing around with the herbs, go to the doctors and get some serious drugs. There are times when you just have to swallow the pill, literally, and go and get medications. But that's why we're qualified. It's 5 to 7 years training to be a herbalist, and you get a science degree at the end of it. And most of the learning isn't about the herbs, but it's anatomy, physiology, pathology, same sort of things doctors learn, just so that you're aware when you make a diagnosis that, I know this is serious, we better go and get some drugs. And also the doctors have got all the equipment. They've got radiology, they've got sonic scans, they've got x-rays, and we don't have any of that. So I'm quite often sending people to the doctors to go and get some tests and then come back to me for the cure. So like I say, something for everything. We also have herbal teas. Now herbal teas is a really good way. Do you want to see the teas? So these are my bags of teas. But when people come and ask me for some remedy, I always like to try and get them to start off with the tea first, because with the tea you make it like a nice cup of tea, 1 teaspoon of herbs per cup of water, roughly about 3 cups a day. And these are recipes that I've collected over 25, 30 years of being a herbalist, and I know they work. So there's recipes here for coughs and for colds, but also recipes for urinary problems, recipes for stomach problems. Tea of happiness is a lovely tea for depression, and it looks like a pot puree. It's so beautiful. Perky tea to wake you up, sleepy tea to make you go to sleep, sneezy tea for hay fever, slim and trim to help lose weight. So it's a really good way, because if you are taking it through a herbal tea, then you're having extra fluids as well, and it's easier to put it in your diet, and it's a cheaper way of doing it. But also we have oils and creams. So if it's nothing that's going to be helped internally, the main thing about the herbs is to try and get the herb to the place where it needs to go. So for instance, ear infections, we do ear drops with St. John's wort oil or mullein oil, and that gets it right into the area that's infected, and the oil is very soothing and its antibiotic properties. For arthritic problems, you can take internal herbs to help balance the pH levels of the blood and get rid of any toxins that build up, but also creams, like Arthro cream, which is made out of comfrey and arnica, which is one I mix myself. Or there's just plain old arnica cream or comfrey. Now that, because you're rubbing it in, it gets straight into the actual joint where you want it to be, and they're very anti-inflammatory. Comfrey is amazingly healing, so comfrey, its other word is knit bone, so it can actually speed the healing of broken bones, as well as tendons, as well as torn muscles and sprains. And it's an ancient herb that I think we've been using for hundreds and thousands of years, and they're still relative today. Herbs do have a thing of going in and out of fashion. Suddenly one herb becomes fashionable and everybody wants it, and it's the rarer and the further away it is, the better, which is a shame, because we've got everything we need here in the land where we live. And funnily enough, in England, where we suffer from a lot of respiratory problems and arthritic problems, the plants that grow in our countryside are really good for respiratory problems, arthritic problems. That's what's mostly out there. Whereas if you're in Africa, where you get yellow fever, beriberi, malaria, the plants that fills the forest out in Africa are for hot, dry diseases like beriberi, malaria. So every type of temperate zone, has its own plant which heals the problems that those people living in that land deal with. So there's no need to look the other side of the world for a miraculous cure, because we actually have got everything here. There's a lot of plants that we used to use a lot of the time, like Sweet William, which is fantastic, anti-diarrhea and stomach settler, but because it's so common, nobody wants to know about it anymore. Stinging nettles are an amazing plant. They're full of iron and magnesium and calcium, so they can help with anemia, and they rid the body of uric and lactic acid, so I've seen it get rid of gout within an afternoon. It's good for arthritis, and it's just a really good general tonic. Other common plants are Gallium, which is called cleavers, grows everywhere. Always using weedol on them, which is a real shame, and that's a brilliant lymphatic plant, so that's really good to help cleanse the lymphatic system. If your glands are up, helps with breast cancer. So our countryside is absolutely the most beautiful medicine chest you can imagine. And I also believe that if we use more plants for our healing and for our beauty products, then hopefully we'll be growing more plants, and all the plants that we need are the wildflowers that have been diminished so much. So one of the reasons I became a herbalist was so if we show people how amazing these weeds are, maybe we'll start growing more, and then they'll see back into the country, and then we'll have more bees, and it's good for our souls to go on a country walk and see verges and fields full of these beautiful wildflowers, which, as everyone knows, have really diminished over the past 50 years. So it's very much an integrated thing. It's good for us, it's good for the environment, it's good for the planet. So it's a really good cycle of connectiveness with herbal medicine, and I think the sooner we realise that, the better. And I think it is changing. I think people are using more and more herbs now. And at the turn of the century, it wasn't trusted anymore because suddenly we discovered conventional medicine, and herbs sort of nearly lost our herbal law. It nearly got slipped away with witchcraft and folklore, and it wasn't given any serious actions. But luckily there was a group of people that got together and made it into science, and made an education body and brought it back up to where it is today. So you have to get a degree now to be able to practice herbal medicine. Whereas once upon a time, anyone could practice, and it's changed. You used to be able to go and visit a nice little herbalist who used to grow some herbs in her garden, and she used to mix them up in the garden and make the pots. But that, because of our massive population explosion, that's really difficult now. For a start, you need a huge garden, and you need a lot of time. So these days, herbal medicine seems to be broken down into three. You get the growers, the people that grow these beautiful organic herbs. You get the makers, people like Avicenna, who make this beautiful rose face cream made with pure rose essential oil and rose water or rose geranium. So they make these lovely, wonderful natural products using beautiful organic plants and sell them on to people like me. They make the tinctures, and then you get the physicians, so the people that do the consultations, do the diagnosis, and work out exactly which plants or which group of plants is going to help. Again, there's two different sorts of using herbs. You can use one plant, which we call a simple, which is what I do behind the counter when people come into the shop. I think, oh, maybe we'll just try this on you and give it in a dropper bottle. Or for my consultations, I make up prescriptions. So I take a very in-depth consultation, which can be 2 to 3 hours, find out exactly what's going on with that person, not just their symptoms, but have a look at their diet, their lifestyle, their sleep patterns, their anxiety levels, what's happened to them in the past, what medications they're taking, what their bowels are like, so blood pressure. So it's really in depth, and by the end of it, you have a really good picture of what's going on with that person and their health. So yes, you do want to deal with their bad foot, which is what they came to see you for, but also you can see that their bowel's a bit sluggish, so that needs queuing up a little bit. They could do with a bit more sleep, so you help with their sleep. And so you can put 5 or 6 different herbs in a prescription and address the body in a holistic way rather than just deal with the bad foot. And I think all medicine should be like that, really, because we are not, our bodies aren't just a bad foot or just your kidneys. It's all integrated. What affects one part of your body will eventually affect another. And it's holistic health, which means you're dealing with the whole of the body and the mind and the spirit. That's very important too. Is a person happy? What do they do for relaxation? What things do they do for fun? Do they have fun? Yeah, it's all really connected, and you can't separate any one of those. Also, one of my most favourite mixes I do here is these cough mixtures, which I make myself, dry and stubborn, and the cold and flu. And for those, I use local honey, because it's a wonderful healing source on its own. And if it's local, it means that it hasn't been heated. If you buy honey that's come from abroad, quite often they heat it up to put it into vats. And as soon as you heat honey, you destroy its antibiotic properties. So it's very important to use honey that's sourced locally. And then what I do is I put about 30% honey and then add herbal tinctures to them. Whatever is needed for dry coughs or stubborn or for colds. And I find those work really well. Also, you can have these plant juices. So instead of alcoholic tinctures, if people can't take alcohol, these are juiced. So pretty much like you would make juicing for yourself. They juice the plants and put them in bottles in. It's a good way of getting what you need from the plants without the alcohol. The only thing is it's not preserved. You'd have to keep it in the fridge, and you need a little bit more of it rather than just the tinctures. So that's pretty much it really. I think as a herbalist I don't just stop at medicine. I like to promote plants in general, so natural soaps, aromatic waters. So these are like aromatic waters which are used by distilling the herbs, so it retains some of the volatile oils, so you're getting all the goodness of the essential oil but not too strong. Things like oats are really good for the skin and also good for the nervous system, so these oat bath bags anybody can make really, and you put plants in them, run it in the bath, and it makes the water beautiful and milky, and it's like Cleopatra having a bath in a milky bath, but it helps you sleep because it's good for the nervous system. And with those you can put whichever flowers in, so if you've got a skin problem you can put chamomile in with the oats. If you have trouble with stress you put lavender in with them. If you want something to wake you up, ready to go out for the night, we go with peppermint or rosemary, or if you just want it to smell nice, there's rose geranium. And it just never stops, you just can keep going and going and going. Also there's the wheat bags, so again, herbs with wheat. Wheat has rutin in it, which has, when it's warmed up, has a mild pain relief and anti-inflammatory properties. These ones have lavender. You can put them on the radiator, or they say in microwave, but I don't like microwaves. So mine goes on the radiator. And then there's the teas just for fun. I have friends that make these amazing teas using pieces of coffee, pieces of almond, and this tastes just like Danish pastries. They're amazing. That one tastes like strawberries, and there's just no end to the power of the plants. So they're not bad for you, but they don't have healing properties, but they're just such a lovely tea to drink, and you've got the knowledge that there's no caffeine in them and that they're just doing you good because they're made out of fruit and nuts and spices. So you can't go wrong with plants. We need to appreciate them a little bit more. And they look beautiful too.